This is coffee number 5. I'm your host, Lara Schmoisman. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to coffee number 5. Today, I was thinking, actually, I hate math. I hate math and I hate math. I'm not a math person. It was a torture for me to have to go through school. And I always wonder why I need to do math. It's terrible. And why so many years? I'm never going to do this in my life. I'm a creative person. And that actually not having math made the decision of what career I will do in my life. I'm from Argentina, as everyone knows. And in Argentina, there are some careers that actually do not have math, not even one class. So that's why I decided to go into production and direction and screenwriting and all that you guys know I did. But I think I created that hate relationship with math, and anything that it was like even a little bit related to math, it was panic attack. I would start itching. It was an allergic reaction even. But over the years, when I started in this digital world, I realized that there was a huge part of it, that it was analytics, that it was about, it sounded really math oriented, but it was not. I found out that after I had to do a deep dive, and it was about more logic and being able to put together finally my creative side with an analytic part, and both together, they can do wonders. So today I invited someone that I truly admire. And I think that he not only had an amazing career, gonna let himself tell us about his background, but also he is helping companies out there to understand their audience through analytics. So welcome, Rand Fishkin. I hope I said it well. Welcome to coffee number 5.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Lara. Good to be here.
And so, Ron, before we go and dive into the analytics world and statistics and all those things that we need to know, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get here, and how did you get to be the founder of, and you say it so I can say it right?
So SparkToro.
SparkToro, yeah. SparkToro, Toro like in Spanish, a toro, a bull.
Hey,
and yeah, how well, you're going to tell us how you came up with that name, but so tell us a little bit your story and how did you get to SparkToro?
Yeah, so I, Lara, like yourself, I was never great at math.
See, great minds think alike.
Yeah, much more of a, I don't know, creative person. So when I dropped out of college, I did not finish school, and became a web designer because I love the artistry and the visual design side and making pretty things for the internet. I did a lot of Flash animation back in the early early
yeah,
2000s.
Those were fancy.
Yeah, so I love that stuff. But over time, that business did not go well, and my mom and I were actually running it together. So I was working with my mother, Jillian. The web design business didn't go so well, and so we got into SEO, which is search engine optimization. You know, trying to rank things in Google.
Yes, that's one of the geeky part of me now thrives on SEO.
Yeah, lovely. So I in the early 2000s, there were not very many resources for SEO out there, and so I started this company called Moz, originally SEO Moz, and it was like a blog and a website, had a popular video series, all that kind of stuff to try and teach people SEO. Mm-hmm. Because I was very frustrated with Google in particular, but all the search engines, that they were so obscure with how they described how they worked, right? I thought that
I love Moz. Was always one of my favorite places to go for data, because I really think that you were telling it as it was. And it was straightforward and easy to get it. I mean, I was from the same boat. My first website was 1999. So
there you go. Yeah, almost exactly the same.
Yeah.
So we tried to make, initially we tried to make Moz a consulting business, right? Helping people with services, and then got into software, made some tools, which lots of folks in the SEO world are familiar with and have used. And Moz grew very, very fast. We raised venture capital, was sort of a traditional like tech company in that way. Got to around $40-50 million in revenue and tens of thousands of customers and hundreds of employees. And I was very unhappy as the CEO. It didn't work for me as a wonderful place to sort of be fulfilled and happy. And I had a serious bout with depression in 2014 and stepped down as CEO. And then I left the company about 4 years later and started SparkToro the next day.
What shows that sometimes being the CEO or being on top or doing something that is very, very popular and it works well, it doesn't match with your level of happiness. Yeah.
And I definitely was struggling, and Moz was struggling too. Those last 4 years after I stepped down, growth didn't stop, but it was much slower. And of course, when you're venture backed, you've got to show very high, very fast growth.
Well, also you got a lot more competition.
That's true too. Yes. Certainly. So, in those probably the last like 5 years that I was at Moz, competition started ramping up very quickly. Players like SEMrush and Ahrefs and other tool suites became very popular. And Moz, which, probably was the market leader in maybe 2011, 12, 13. Mm-hmm. By 2020, I don't think, it was barely in the top 5. So, very frustrating times for obviously a lot of folks at the company and myself too. And thankfully, I was able to find happiness with a new job. And so SparkToro is a tiny little company. We help folks, as you mentioned, do audience research. So understand groups of people online and their behaviors and demographics. And there's only 3 of us. It's just myself, my co-founder, and Amanda Natividad, who's down in California in the LA area. And we
like me.
Yeah. Exactly. And we have a really great time running this company. It's serving, a few, maybe about, I think 1,400 customers at this point. And we have a really lovely balance of work and personal lives. And we get to help a ton of people every day understand the things that their audiences do so they can do better marketing for them. And we get to use both our creative and our math skills, which is a great thing.
I'll call it math. Don't call it math. Anyway, since we're both back, let's go back to the 90s a little bit for a few minutes. Because neither you or me, we were taught this. I ended up even teaching this in college. I was teaching digital marketing because there wasn't anyone better than me or nobody who had education. We had to learn as we go and find out what Google was telling us, or MSN or Yahoo, that back then they were very strong. And let's not forget about Netscape and a few others. And that we were telling us about this new world of SEO and to understand our audience. Even at some point, we were measuring some metrics that they weren't really the good metrics to measure. And we had to switch things as we were. We were all learning. Even Google was learning.
Yeah.
No, but absolutely. We found out that this is something that I'm trying always to come across with my clients. And it's something that it's hard to understand sometimes, that people are not looking for the keywords that you think that you're working for. People look for problems and they want solutions.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what a search is, right? That people are saying, hey, I have this problem, I have it right now, and I want a solution to that problem. And yeah, this was the gold mine of SEO back in the late 90s and early 2000s. There was just so few people who believed in it as a practice, so few people who were investing in it, that if you put in a little bit of effort and some knowledge and you ranked, number 1 for some keyword, you could transform your business. It was magical, right? And I think it made a lot of people into very successful, businesses and entrepreneurs just by getting that one channel right.
Absolutely. And my question is, because you created a company all based on understanding your audience. And I want you to explain to our audience, what are the benefits of understanding and getting this data? Because a lot of people say, I don't need to understand it in such a deep level. I just want to know if they want to buy my product or not. Or just tell me keywords. And it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, this is it's such a funny irony, really, that for all the years that I was, building Moz and trying to get people to invest in SEO, it was like pulling teeth, trying to get marketers and companies to even believe in SEO as a practice. And now,
now it's like a common keyword. Anyone wants to say, just put keywords.
Yeah. And yeah, nowadays, right? Everybody does SEO, right? Every company has an SEO division. Every marketing team has an SEO person. Every consultant and agency does it. And so now what's interesting is that a big part of my challenge is to say, SEO isn't everything, right? There is a broad set of behaviors that people have around any given topic. And very, very often it is not the case that ranking for a keyword in Google is the best way to grow your business, the best way to reach your audience. So, the way that I think about audience research is essentially the absolute best marketing that you can possibly do in the whole world is tell the right people who need your product and have your problem about your solution and why it's right for them in places that they trust at exactly the time that they need it.
Exactly.
That's it, right?
It's that simple. It's that simple.
That's the whole marketing equation. Executing on that, very difficult, right?
I know. It's like I always try to say, marketing is about two things, authority and relevance. Show that you're the best at what you do, people to find you. That's it.
And I think that the job of audience research is to answer hard questions about those particular tactics, which is, who is the right audience for this and who's not? And which one should we go after? What are the sources that they pay attention to?
Where do they hang out?
Do they listen to podcasts that sort of tell them about the topic? Do they watch YouTube videos? Maybe they're subscribed to YouTube channels. Maybe they follow people or publications on social media. Maybe they subscribe to email newsletters, or they go to conferences and events, or they read trade publications. Maybe they follow certain blogs and websites. You don't know until you do research, right? You can make assumptions like, well, I read this, so probably everybody in the field reads this. That's not a good assumption to make, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so what you want to do is you want to understand your audience's real behaviors, and you want to understand the variety and diversity of that audience. So, you could say, oh, most of my audience are whatever, 50 to 75-year-old women. And then when you do your audience research, you're like, there's a lot of younger men and women and non-binary folks. And gosh, the age ranges are kind of all over the place, and the geography is much more diverse than I expected. Maybe I didn't quite understand the audience the way I should have. And I think that happens to marketers and product creators and entrepreneurs all the time. They think they know their audience. I've done it. I think I know who I'm supposed to reach. But when I actually do some interviews and run a survey and go dig into the audience research data, in SparkToro or other tools like that, I suddenly get this much broader picture about who these people are and what they do.
Yeah, we always talk about that persona that is really important to know. I always say, who do you think you want to, and we work on estimates or things that we believe is true. But nowadays we have all this data. That's all-time marketing.
Yeah. Yeah. So
when I say you guys we talk about resources. For me, resources is a big word. And resources means your time, your money, your team, and your knowledge.
Yeah.
And those are resources that you need to know in base to do whatever you do in your life. And if you have in a business and your money, you have a budget, you need to decide where you allocate it. If you have a smaller budget, even more. So you need to decide where you can afford and hang out and where your money will make the difference.
Absolutely true, right? And which tactics am I going to invest in? If I think that my audience is mostly just searching on Google, I'm probably going to spend a lot of money on paid search and SEO.
Absolutely.
But if I find out later, oh man, actually a ton of my audience pays attention to these sources of influence in their field, and then they go directly to the people and publications and places that are recommended, and they never really search Google for the non-branded keywords, very few people are going out and searching for audience research software, or I want to understand my customers better, or those kinds of things. What I believed fundamentally, and I think the market is showing that, is that people in our universe don't go to Google to understand and solve the problem that we help them with. And because of that, SEO, we could do a lot of investment. We could rank number one for, audience research software or whatever it is. We could buy those top spots with PPC. And, this many people per month search for that. But tons of people go to LinkedIn and Twitter. They listen to podcasts like yours. They follow YouTube channels in the marketing space. They go to webinars and events and conferences, and they look to learn more about what they can do in digital marketing to better know their audiences. And that's where we're present.
You are very different. You're a very different product that my clients will come to me, because you're an expert in the field. Like, for example, I do very little SEO for my agency too. For many things, you need to decide what to do. But yes. I think but you cannot just throw a page away and not set it up right for SEO. I'm sure your page you have a nice meta tags there.
I don't think we have any meta tags, but we don't target any keywords. We don't, set anything up for SEO, because we believe that SEO is a low quality channel for our business. For many businesses, it is a high quality channel, and they should invest in it. And they should do. I don't think meta tags have been relevant for a long time, but they should absolutely, good titles, good meta descriptions, whatever. I haven't been.
Sorry, I meant meta descriptions before, not meta tags.
Oh no, that's no problem. But technically, meta description is a type of meta tag, right? So There you go. Yeah. But I haven't been in SEO for 4 years, so I really don't know what the modern day SEO is like. That field moves so fast, 6 months, everything can change. So yeah, for us, it is really about telling people, hey, if you are looking to branch outside of paid search or SEO or display advertising, those kinds of things, you can directly find the websites that your audience visits. You can find the social accounts that they follow. You can find the podcasts that they listen to. You can find the YouTube channels they subscribe to, and then you can be present in those places. Yeah. And that is a phenomenal way to build up your brand and to get folks going to Google and searching for your brand. I would much rather, if you gave me the option, number one, you rank number one for the 50 most important search terms to your business. Number two, you get everyone who is thinking about searching for those things to look for your brand name instead. I would much rather have that one. I would much rather have people know my brand and prefer it than search for all the other search terms. You look at, for example, home rentals, right? So people look for vacation rentals, yes. home vacation rentals. I want to rent a house on a trip. I'm going to Mexico and I want to rent a house. There's this many searches for that compared to Airbnb Oaxaca, right? Yeah. Airbnb owns that market. No, people don't go and type vacation rentals anymore. They search for Airbnb. Exactly. And that is, I think, the kind of brand marketing that is absolutely incredible and invaluable.
Okay, so people got to your site, people go and is interested. How do you retain that customer? How do you keep that possible customer entertained in your business and interested in your business?
Oh, for us specifically?
Yes.
Yeah. So SparkToro is a free tool, right? So folks can use it for free and try it out. There's no free trial or anything. It's just free forever. And then lots of people who try out the tool, so they might say, for example, okay, I'm going to search for my audience first and maybe some of my competitors' audiences. So I'm going to, plug in my website or my social handle, and then I want to see my competitors' social handle and their website. I want to see the audience that pays attention to me and the audience that pays attention to them. And I want to try and understand, where am I potentially missing out on whatever opportunities for reaching my audience that my competitors taking advantage of. And lots of data about the people who are in there. So job titles and roles and gender and age and skills and interests and geography and all these other demographic traits. What hashtags are they using when they post to social? What are they following? What do they talk about, right? What topics are they talking about? And as people use the tool and find value in it, they tend to just sign up, right? So we're very low costs. We're like $50, start at $50 a month. Lots of people sign up for a month or two, and then they do their, audience research, and they're done, and they leave, and then they come back 6 months later or a year later when they need to. For a lot of agencies, they subscribe for a year or 2 years or 3 years, and then they use it for all their clients. And yeah, that's kind of our business.
Do you use any email marketing to communicate?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yes.
What do you use the email marketing for? It's something that I'm super into, and I think it's one of our best conversion tools these days.
Completely agree. I mean, I think email is so powerful. It's the only channel that I know that in the past 25 years started incredibly powerfully and has stayed super powerful the whole time, right? It has not waned at all. And for us, yeah, so we use a variety of emails. We have an email newsletter that goes out to, I think, about 70,000 people every month. And, it's called the Audience Research Newsletter. Amanda puts it together. It's got, sort of a few tips about how to do audience research and a few links that we find that we think folks are interested in. And then we have an email onboarding sequence. So you've probably, if you've used a tool like Moz or Ahrefs or anything like that, right? You get emails from them and they kind of tell you, hey, have you tried this feature? Have you tried this function? When you searched for this, you can use it this way in your marketing. And SparkToro has the same thing there. We have a blog that is relatively well read. We had a very popular post last week about Twitter's percentage of real and fake accounts that got a lot of traffic.
I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah, and we do a content series, a webinar series that folks subscribe to via email as well. All of those, kind of feed into people better understanding the space, better understanding our tool, and hopefully getting a lot of value out of it. I think that's why our retention rates on email are quite high, right? We don't get a lot of unsubscribes.
That's fantastic. I always say that as long as you don't get unsubscribed, even if the people, they don't purchase your product, is you never know when they're going to need it, or they can send it to a friend, or you never know. But as long as they stay subscribed, even if they don't click, even if they don't read it every week, the fact that they don't unsubscribe is a win.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think it just tells you like, hey, I maybe am not engaging right now, but I'm still interested in this. I want to keep getting it. Tell me what's going on. And you have an opportunity to engage with them in the future.
Absolutely. Well, before we go, Rand, I want to ask you the same question that I ask absolutely everyone. Is what was that huge mistake that you made, that you were, oh my God, why did I do? But you end up learning so much from it, that instead of making a mistake, became that learning experience that gave you so much more value that it was completely okay to have it.
Boy, Lara, to be honest, I've made a lot of really big mistakes, but I'm trying to think of one where I was okay with it after. I mean, you're right. I always learn a tremendous amount. I think, for example, it was a mistake to raise venture capital, especially, after the first round for Moz. We raised another $18 million in 2012. And then a couple of years later, another 10. Both of those rounds, I think, were mistakes. I learned a tremendous amount from it, but was it worth it? I don't know, so much pain and heartache. And so many people, I think, who, would have had a better experience. I just don't know if I can justify it. It's great that I learned a lot, but what about all the employees whose stock options were underwater? What about all the customers that we didn't serve well because we took our eye off the ball? What about, I don't know, the community who who lost out. So that one's hard for me. I also regret, I deeply regret stepping down as CEO. I think that I should have played that another way. You know, I had some serious, you know, depression and mental illness problems at the time. And I wish that I had taken a step back and given myself permission to be both more vulnerable and more relaxed in my job. Just taken a few months and been chill and let other people take some of my responsibilities, but remained in the CEO role, because once I stepped down, I no longer had I felt the responsibility to make that company great, but I no longer had the power to do it. And that's a terrible feeling. You know, it's awful to feel like you are responsible for something that you can't own and control. You don't get to control the outcome, but you know everyone's going to blame you for it, and you blame yourself for it.
Well,
terrible feeling.
People are always going to blame someone. And always is the one who leaves or steps down. It's the case, but also it's great that you had that experience and you were able to process all that. And now we're doing wonderful things with SparkToro and giving amazing value because of those experiences.
Wow. Thank you. Yeah. I think, you know, the regrets that I have are really around disappointing myself, right? I feel like you're right. Other people are always going to, you know, cast blame, and you can't control that. But I know that I blame myself, and that you can't get away from your own head. No. There's nowhere to escape.
But the only thing that you can say is accept it and keep going and do better. That's the only thing.
Yes, exactly. I think that's, you know, that's the big reason that I started SparkToro, was that I wanted to do this again. I wanted to prove not just to other people, but to myself. I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it, that I wasn't a one and done sort of, that was a fluke and, you know, you can't do it again. I wanted to prove that I had the ability, and fingers crossed in the next few years, you know, SparkToro turns into something really special. I think it's already at the start of something quite special.
Yeah, and I'm going to be there. I'm honored to be here to see and follow you and see how this is going to become amazing. And also, I mean, it's a decision. I mean, there are so many people doing things just for the money. It's amazing to see people out there, and I try every day, and just to do something for others, educate others, help others. And I think that you're doing wonderful things, educating people about how to connect with your audiences. It's one of the basics and the fundamentals of running a business.
Thank you. Yeah, I certainly, I don't think that I do nearly enough for other folks, and certainly, you know, financially speaking, we're doing quite well. So it's a good reminder to keep doing more, and that there is no enough, right? I think that when you're someone who is kind of benefited in outsized ways from American capitalism, yeah, you have an obligation to give back absolutely in big ways.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having coffee with us today. And to you guys, I will see you next week with more coffee number 5. It was so good to have you here today. See you next time. Catch you on the flip side. Ciao, ciao.